this lesson, we're going to be continuing to build a pressure plate. So I have a cylinder, and then I have an open cylinder in 3D. I'm looking at this in the trimetric. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be adding to this. And so I'm following along here. I'm going to look at the top view of this. And I'm actually going to put a hole in that first disc that we made and that we extruded. So what we'll do is go to this time we're going to go and we're making the circle like we did last time, but we're going to do what's called a cut extrude on it. So let's go ahead and we'll go to the build that circle again, and it's going to should be automatically on that plane, and then we will dimension this after we go. So then we'll go to the smart dimension as we've been doing. All right, so smart dimension, and it's already highlighted here. And in this case, we want to make this at 25 and say OK. All right, so make sure it looks proportional. Now what we're going to do is let's go ahead and we are going to extrude this. We're going to do a cut extrude. Notice it's not a regular, and notice it's going down, right, or up. Just make sure that it's going through the object. I'm doing this by holding my mouse and clicking it and dragging it. So make sure it's going through the object. And then what we'll do is, instead of blind, we'll go through all. All right, you have to be careful with these because if you have multiple objects, it'll actually extrude through everything and you won't realize it. So we're going to go through, and it's just this object. And then hit the checkbox, and you should see the hole through the object as you see here. And so you want to always inspect the parts and scroll it around three-dimensionally. And I'm doing that again with my mouse and holding down and just scrolling around it. So we're going to continue on here. And what we're going to do now is we're going to put a fillet in there. Fillet is essentially radiusing the edges. So very carefully follow the tutorial here, and you have multiple ways of doing this. We're just going to do those edges, but what we do is actually, instead of selecting the edges, we're going to select the surfaces. And in this case, it's going to be 2 millimeters. So we're going to select that whole top. You don't want to select the edge. You actually want to select right in the middle. So there's the 1, and we can do 2. There's 2. And then just go ahead and select OK, and you should see it radiused. And you want to inspect your part before you continue on. So I'm looking at the trimetric. All right, so we'll continue on here. So what it's asking us to do is actually make a construction line, right? So we're going to be making another part here. So we're going to do the extrude, and in this case, we're going to make a little line to dimension off of. So we're going to be in the top view, and I'm going to select the icon with a line, but if I click the arrow, you'll notice that it's a center line. So I'll select it, hold it down, I'll select center line, and then I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing along. I'm in the top view. I'm going to snap to the center, and then I'm going to drag the line with my mouse up. All right, so I'm going to click on the 0, 0 and drag my mouse up. And again, I'm not going to make it accurate at this point. I'm just going to click it. And I'll hit the escape on my keyboard. And then I'll select that construction line there, the hidden line, and I'll key in the dimensions that it's asking. Because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking a circle and snapping on the end of it. So right now we haven't told it where it is. That's okay because we're snapping on it, and we'll give it a dimension in a moment here. All right. So now what I'm seeing is the diameter needs to be 27. So in the smart dimension, I'll go ahead and I'll select both those items, the circle and that center line. Excuse me. So this one needs to be at 27. So I'll just go ahead and type in 27 and hit the check mark. And they're actually attached. And so then center line needs to be at 35. So let's say OK to that. Now let's select the center line. And once we have that selected, all right, so center line here, get it snapped on. Smart dimension, come on, there we go. Sometimes you got to click a couple times. There we go. So I'm dragging it out. It's just important that you're being accurate here. Type in 35. Okay, so notice that the circle on the top moved with it. So that's very helpful here. And I'll say OK. And we'll continue on here. So we want to extrude this, right? So what we're going to do, we've already got this command feature. So what we'll do is select what's now highlighted in blue. I don't need to click it as many times as I'm doing here. Just click it. All right, it's already highlighted. I'm trying to make it orange. I don't know why. Okay, so you got to be careful. So we'll get this circle dimension. Now we're not worried about the center line here. So let's take a look at this. We're already in the extrude command. So we're going to follow along here. And so it's easiest to work when you're doing extruding in the 3D mode here. So I kind of kicked out of it, but we can go back in here. And then it wants us to extrude it at 30. So it's hard to see what's happening because it's coming right at me. So if I put this in a 3D view, and then you can notice I can also drag the arrow. This is at 30, and this is fine. You can also do this. There's multiple ways of doing it. You notice it changed there. And once you get it 30, make sure that it's working off the surface and going up. If it didn't, then you want to make sure you go back and make sure that you're starting that initial circle on the surface. All right, so then let's go ahead and you'll notice that we're going to be doing an extruded cut. So we're going to be on the top surface here, we're going to select the extruded cut, and we're going to have to make a circle because it doesn't know what it is. So extruded cut, and we'll select the plane, the top of the surface. So make sure that we're working off this plane. And then we're going to make a circle, and I'm doing this in the 3D, which is fine. It has a nice feature where it should snap for us in the center, so it's snapped in the center here, and I'll just make a circle, make sure it's on that plane, and I can change the diameter of this or the radius later. All right, so I've made a circle here. All right, so let's just press OK. And we're going to have to change that, but let's go ahead and select it. So it actually looks close, but we want this to be at 15. Select OK. And then we're going to extrude this. We're doing a cut extrude. So make sure it's not a regular extrude, it's a cut extrude. And we want to go down with it. So if we want to exit the sketch, and you'll notice because we're already in this feature, we're not doing blind though, we're going through all. All right, once you've done the through all, inspect it, and you've completed lesson 2.